Welcome back to FURYCAST. On today's show, I have someone who's been training in the martial arts for over 42 years. He's the developer of the Warriors Path program and the founder of CTAC, the Civilian Tactical Training Association. I know him as the associate director of Erik Paulson's Combat Submission Wrestling, CSW. Sorry. He also holds rank in more martial arts than I can name, including a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. On today's show, I have Mr. Alan Baker. But first, make sure you comment on this video, let it play to the end, like, subscribe, and yes, please, smash that bell so you can get notified every time a FURYCAST video drops. Now, for my interview with Sifu, Coach, Professor Alan Baker. Competition. And just tell me the story of how you grew up and what eventually led you to pursue the martial arts.
Oh, wow. Well, I was a very high energy, rowdy youth. Mom had a really difficult time handling me. She came from a large family, and pretty much all the brothers and sisters had 3 kids, a minimal of 3 kids. And originally that was her plan. She was going to do 3. But then she met me. So, and this is how she tells me the story, and I changed her mind. I had a natural resistance or buck, as Mom used to say. I fought everything, even if it was good for me. Eating, going to sleep. I just, was a naturally resistant.
Here in the South, you're in the South as well. You're in the Atlanta, Georgia area, correct?
Yes.
We call that being hard-headed. Some might call it pig-headed.
Yeah, you could call it many things. So, ended up in going to school, and eventually the teacher sent a letter home informing her that I needed to be drugged in order for the teacher to handle me in school. And fortunately for me, Mom said no. And in an attempt to help, though, she started looking around for options to get me under control, teach me some discipline. And that's what led to local martial arts school. And the first time I went in, I was 11. It might have been right before the 11th birthday. Still remember it to this day. The guy's name was Brent Helms, and he taught in a fallout shelter at the local community college. He had 2 sons. And first night, I guess it might have been obvious that I was a handful, but he's like, I'm going to let you spar with my boys. And, one was smaller, one was bigger. Started with the smaller one, and then went on to the bigger one, and they kicked my butt. They just beat me to death, and I loved it. To me, I always got in trouble for being a little rowdy, but here I could go to this place and roughhouse, and I didn't get in trouble. So to me, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I was all in. And
What style was this?
That was Ishinru originally.
One of the original founding Japanese styles, correct?
Right. Yes. And this is in the 80s. So by the time I was 13 and 14, I started doing some work, mowing yards, doing things around the neighborhood and making extra money. And I spent every bit of it to join the other schools in this little town.
Well, hold up. You were training at multiple. How old were you?
13, 14. They were still having to drive me there.
And you were training at multiple styles, multiple locations. So you were doing mixed martial arts training.
I was eat up with it. I loved it. I wanted to do everything. And
let me ask you this, though, because when I got back into martial arts in the 90s, I was doing judo and taekwondo at the same time, but I had to keep it secret from my instructors because either one of them would have kicked me out of the school. So were they cool with you, with Mom driving you?
I've heard that, but I don't remember getting any feedback from them. There was a Burmese Bondo school at the local YMCA. So I joined up there, and then there was a Tung Sudo school over on the north side of town. A guy named Bill Henderson. So I joined Bill's school, and they all knew that I was doing different things. You
How
know,
come all the karate guys in the 80s had names like that? Bill Henderson, you know, Bobby Hicks. I do Taekwondo from Bobby Hicks. You know, I just made that name up, but, you know,
too.
they all were. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember for him, and I remember how big he had golf balls on his
Mm-hmm.
fist. And I remember hearing a story about him getting a fight, road rage, at an intersection with a guy that was on a bike, had his helmet on, and he punches through the helmet to trying to hit the guy, the shield, you know. So anyway, that's what I remember about.
Now let me clarify something. I believe that story because I know this generation of martial arts, and I love that generation of martial arts. But I train like when you say he had golf balls on his. I think most people think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Most people think you're saying he had big hands, but no, he had like huge calluses on his knuckles. Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, because I trained with Rod Prejean, who's like a old school Shotokan guy when I was a kid, right? And he had these big round calluses, probably from punching stone or something of the like.
Multiple things. You know, one of the things I remember about Bill is he had a piece of carpet that, and he carried around, and he would turn it over on the backside, the rough area. And while he was just sitting around the school, he'd just be sitting there working it, you know. And I mean, he had the effect from it too. You know, you look at his hands, you're like, I do not want to get hit with that.
So you're training at multiple locations, like 5, 6 days a week at this time.
Yeah, there was a time, you know, the deal, and I know she regretted it, was if you pay for it, I'll take you. And that's when I started mowing yards, anything I could do around the neighborhood to make extra money. And I'm like, hey, here it is. Let's go get involved. And I probably did that up until about 16. And then I was able to get a real job installing car stereos at a place called Penguins Records and Tapes. And the great thing about it is it was performance based pay, and you know, I high energy. I didn't mind hustling, and so I got paid pretty good, and it allowed me to buy a car. And I started getting involved with other schools that were in towns adjacent.
Oh my lord! So now you're spreading out further.
Yeah, that's when I got introduced to Kung Fu. I met two instructors that taught it, one in Chattanooga and one in Middle Tennessee.
What style?
The one in Chattanooga, he taught Tai Chi, and he taught it was a mixed Shaolin Kung Fu system. So, you know, he had had experience in different ones. So it was more of a mixed, and the one in Middle Tennessee was a mixed system too. Um, he was a ex-military, I believe, special forces. So he had trained overseas and come back, and just kind of started his own thing. And that stuff amazed me. I mean, you know, at that time it was like meeting Yoda. So these
There wasn't
guys,
a there wasn't a karate school on every corner, Taekwondo school, BJJ school around your corner back at
no,
this time, you know.
no, you had to go find it, and the training was a lot different too. It was rougher. I mean, things have relaxed quite a bit since then. Um, but
That's the understatement of
thank
of the
God for
century.
it. You know, it's because it made me who I am. At that time, I thought that was normal, and I found out when I started developing a real life in my mid to late 20s that it wasn't normal at all. But needless to say, I mean, I was eat up by it. I knew right away that that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. Everybody thought I was crazy, parents, friends, but and that's what I did.
Were you buying all the black belt magazines inside Kung Fu and all that good stuff?
Yeah, books, any book I could get. Um, I was still to this day, I've probably got a collection of probably between 2 and 3,000 books.
In general or martial arts specific?
Most of them are martial arts specific.
They,
Yeah.
wow. Panther Press must have been really, really happy with you. Yeah.
Um, but that's been over, you know, 30, 40 years. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty much anything I get my hands on. Or
So you're 16. You start doing a little bit more. What's next? Did you find grappling eventually, or
my
was that
first
much later?
introduction was a Japanese jiu-jitsu instructor who he actually had come to the Bondo school in Cleveland and joined, and he was a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. And they never didn't roll. They did a little bit. They get a little rowdy. He was also like a bodybuilder type of guy, so he was a tough guy. But that was the first introduction to the concept. And even Bondo has a subsystem of grappling. They really weren't rolling at that time. It was just an introduction to some concepts and ideas. Your basic bent arm locks and stuff on the ground.
Tell me a little bit about Bondo. Explain that style, please.
It's probably very comparable to Muay Thai. The at the time it was Burma. I don't even think they refer to it as Burma anymore, but it was
Myanmar, I believe.
to Thailand. So very similar, with the exception of headbutts. They would actually train a lot of that.
That's the
And
style they call the art of nine limbs, correct?
yes, and that's first introduction to what they called a shin bone kick.
Most people would never train like real Muay Thai because it's a hard style.
Yeah.
Elbows, knees, shins.
Mm-hmm.
The style you're talking about does all that and incorporates headbutts. My understanding of this style is in competition, headbutts are legal. You can headbutt in the matches out there, correct?
Well, the way they were running it, as long as you had decent headgear on, you could do it. That's the way they looked at it. Mouthpiece and headgear. So if you got your gear
It
on,
doesn't cover this.
yeah. um,
But I guess my point is at 14, you're training a style that most Muay Thai people would look at and go, no, not for me.
well, I didn't know any better. I thought and they were a pretty rough bunch. Every Thursday night was, if you didn't want to get beat up, don't come on Thursday nights. And I'm always really looked for application, and so my good friend Eric and I both, that's where we were every Thursday night. And it wasn't a huge group, but we had some really good guys that weren't afraid to get in there. I just remember my having headaches, because you don't know any better. We didn't know what timing sparring was. It's just hit them and, toughen up and get in there and do it. We had one guy who drove up from North Georgia. He owned a boxing gym and he drove up just to train because it was an obscure system. It was hard to find. And particularly remember him lighting me up and introducing me to what really good hands could do to you and movement. But it was a heck of an experience. I didn't find out, like I said, until later that not everybody was doing that. I think I got a job in the early 90s in Chattanooga, working at a martial arts school, which was that was the dream, and started getting introduced to even more. After you get in the industry, they would have people in for seminars, so you started to meet more personalities in Chinese boxing, Quan Fa, Kempo. Just the world started to open up at that time, and I was doing pretty good. I teach privates during the day, classes at night, and high energy. I didn't mind working all day, and so made lots of money, but blew every bit of it. I mean, it's probably ridiculous amounts of money I blew in the 90s. That's when I started making enough to go see Erik Paulson and Guro Dan. and start getting immersed in those cultures. Uh, and then I met Francis Fong, who at that time was in Atlanta. And probably around 94, 95, I decided to move from the Chattanooga area down to Atlanta. And that's how I ended up here. Originally came down to train with Sifu Fong.
How did you first get connected with Erik Paulson and the CSW organization?
Well, a friend of mine, we were coming down for what at the time was called the Southeastern Conference at at Sifu Fong's Academy. So they have it twice a year, and the highlight was Guro Dan. And over the years, Guro has had different people who've traveled with him to be uke. Joe Clark is in that position now, but back at that time, it was Erik Paulson. And so we went to see Guro, and here's Erik. And literally on the floor, Guro was teaching, and he goes, "Hey, Erik, could you teach? And would you guys mind staying over an extra hour? And so you really need to see what Coach Erik does." And so he agreed to it. And after we got finished training with Guro, Erik taught. And that was the first introduction to Erik and what he did. And it's just amazing. And to watch him, there had to be 30, 40 people in that room. And at that time, he just trained with everybody. And he'd just go through the whole room like it was nothing. And that's when I was like, I'm going to go see this guy.
That's what I was going to ask. So then you started traveling to see both Guro Dan and Erik Paulson. For those who don't know, Erik Paulson started under Guro Dan, and since has, with the blessing of Guro Dan, has his own organization that I'm a part of, that Coach Allen is also a part of, the Combat Submission Wrestling organization, CSW for short. Respect the name, put some respect on it. You heard me? But and so at that time, you just started traveling and visiting Erik. Was he out in Fullerton at the time?
He was around LA at that time, and I managed to get in touch with him and said, "Hey, I'm going to come out and train." Okay, great. So I just went. He didn't have a school at the time, so I get there. Finally get in touch with him. He goes, "Come to this address, and it's going to be in the back of the building." Okay. So I show up, and it is a warehouse, and it was occupied by it looked like they had a lot of machinery in the front of this warehouse, and I go in and I'm like, okay. So I ask, and they, "Oh yeah, he's back in the back." So literally back in like the left hand corner, and might be like a little 20 by 20 spot. There was a mat, and some of the roughest individuals I'd ever ran into. It's another moment in life I remember. I mean, it probably took me 3 days to recover from it, but loved it. At that time, he was doing, shooting in, entry, takedown, submission, everything that was people say is introduced to the world through MMA. Coach Erik was doing. With
What year was this, you think?
Oh man, it had to be 94, 95.
94, 95. Now let me go back again, because so much what you're saying I can relate to. I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu through traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Well, actually went Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But also back at this time, late 90s, probably up to the early 2000s, it wasn't uncommon. There was the regular martial arts schools, your Taekwondo, your karate, there was strip malls, whatever. But anything kind of MMA-ish or NHB, they would call it at the time, or grappling oriented, it was always kind of sketchy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and frowned upon. Earlier you said, well, didn't the schools have a problem with each other? And I never really experienced that,
that's
but
amazing.
I do remember, what is the stuff you're doing? I go, it's like this, it's like this. No, we're not. No,
won't work.
Yeah,
I'll just hit him with a panther elbow. It's like, what? But you would get invited, or you would seek out these kind of like covens of grapplers or whatever, and it was always like in the back back of another business. There was like a mechanic shop or a barber shop would rent out like a little space that they weren't using, and somebody
Yeah.
would put mats there, and you'd go to these. You'd get crazy instructions or park here, come around the back, you hit the button, and it was always very complex. But it felt like a secret society that you were a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, shortly thereafter, I was fortunate enough to get involved with Guro Dan Inosanto's instructor program. So I started going out for the camps, and he would have John Jacques Machado teaching. He would teach for like an hour or two before the camp starts, so you could pay extra and go to that. And that was probably my second introduction. That's when I actually started getting introduced to here's the gi, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Um, and then shortly after that, met Pedro Sauer in Atlanta, and started traveling to Utah to visit him. And the rest is history.
What's next? Is there another like kind of like monumental moment in your martial arts history?
Oh, you know, my goal was always to be in the industry, teaching or doing something.
You
Um,
didn't have your own school at this time. You're still just traveling and visiting.
at that time, I was transferring to Atlanta, so unfortunately, I had to get a real job for a little while. And you probably know the process. You got to save up some money, find a place, rent a place, and you just jump off the cliff. Maybe some people will come in and sign up.
That's where I'm at now.
And so originally got around to opening the academy we have now around 2002. And you sit at your desk all day long waiting. Finally, that first guy comes in, and then you're
And it's
familiar with the
before
process.
social media, so you couldn't do boosted, targeted ads on Facebook, right? So you're just passing out flyers and hoping they come in.
Popping up the little street signs on the side of the road, and the city would come and take them all down at the end of the week. I'd put them back up, and after a while, I got to introduce to the city worker that took them down. He was getting tired of it. He finally came and saw me, So, but that's how you would advertise at that time. And then once you got a pretty good group going, is word of mouth. Um, so followed that path for a while. I've always tried to stay involved in the different systems. In some form. That's one of the reasons being in the industry is nice. Is you set up your schedule right. You can teach maybe 4 nights a week, but the rest of the time you can train. I mean, it's ideal. Or you can travel and gather more information. Um, I think around 2010, if I'm not mistaken, I got introduced to Kizi fighting method, which is a system out of Spain, and
Hmm.
that was.
Tell me. I'm something I don't know about.
You'll have to look it up. It's very unique, which is one of the things that drew to me. Is after a while, different things you start to see similarities in martial arts, and this one was very unique. It did a lot of shielding, which you'll see in different systems of Salat. Panantukan will do it a little bit, and they'll form shields by putting their hands on the head. Now, these guys were doing it, and they were moving this shielding around and using it to fight with. And I'd never seen that before. So they came to Dallas. I forget the year. I'd have to go look. But as soon as I heard they were going to be there, I would, bought the ticket, got the room, and went down. But they had a team of guys they brought with them. There's literally about 17 of their top guys they brought over. I think they were expecting a little bigger crowd than what they got, which was fortunate for me because it was just 3 or 4 days of immersion in it. And, I really liked it. It had some interesting answers for multiple opponent or being able to fight in spaces that we normally didn't fight. For instance, sitting in a booth at a restaurant or
Hmm.
in your car, somebody opens the door and they want to come in and take you out. You don't really have to change your position, you can go from right there. So they did a lot of work off of walls, one opponent, two opponent. So that was a pretty unique moment, just because of the obscurity of it, and the different things that it would do. And then that's the last major that I got a taste of and started chasing.
So when did you kind of hook up with Erik Paulson on a more, guess, student level? Were you there from the beginning of CSW, or?
Well, when we opened the school here in Atlanta, I remember we had him out. He was one of the first people I started having out for seminars. And, Tanya and him would always travel together. So I've got a photo of us on that first seminar, and we all look like we're 12, just thin as rails too. But it wasn't a huge group. And after that, it was every year, let's schedule the next one, schedule the next one. And then at one point, they were having some difficulty with someone that was running their organization for them. And I've always been entrepreneurial and growth minded. So I was, what, I can fix that for you. And that's when I started getting into association design and development. Because at the time, it's just pay me and you can fly my flag. Here's a t-shirt. It wasn't really service orientated, and that was one of the things we changed is service for our guys, the affiliates. So we started to help them develop their business. We started organizing curriculums and put them together like in a week to week, so the guys would know what to teach. They would have a process to follow, testing methods, and it just grew from there.
And you're going to have one of the coaches camps at your gym in November this year, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we usually have one every November. Normally there's two. This year we started doing three. So the first coach camp is usually in Orange County, and that focuses on like CSW and the MMA program, which is mostly the grappling material or grappling with striking. And the second camp is just pure Erik Paulson Jiu-Jitsu. And then the third one is the one in November in Atlanta, and it focuses on the STX kickboxing program, which is, it's a combination of Muay Thai, Sabat, those types of things. So an affiliate, once you're in the program, the camps are part of the program. All you have to do is show up.
I just did my first coaches camp out in Fullerton, and it was indeed life-changing. And meeting Erik and training, seeing how his mind works for martial arts is kind of amazing. Not kind of amazing, very amazing. I've been training for a lot of years, and I haven't met anyone with that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? There's no word for it,
Got an encyclopedia brain.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And what's crazy is, he's probably on a leash for that camp.
Yeah, he's dumbing it down for people like me, right?
Meaning Tanya is probably saying, hey, don't go too fast and don't do too much, because we want the guys to get the material. You'll train, and then the end of the day, everybody's hanging out. You go, hey, coach, show me this submission inside. And, there's no leash at that time. And his higher ranking guys are around, and he'll literally run through a chain. These are connected submissions that all fall together. They're not individual submissions.
Yeah, that's what's impressive. You're absolutely right.
So he will chain a whole series of submissions that'll start on one side of the body and go all the way around it, and end up being 30 to 40 techniques. And he'll run every one of them because he gets in the zone. And then he'll look up and go, oh, did you catch that? And then we're like, could you just show me the first 10?
I caught it, but do it again for everybody else.
Yeah. But he's gifted. with that. And not only that, he's got the ability to create jujitsu, create grappling. I'll go to him sometimes and go, hey, this happens, this new thing. I got stuck in this. It's kind of strange. And he'll say, put me in it. And so, okay, you put him in it, and he's like, oh, just do this and fix it. And, where's that from? I just figured it out. I go, okay. And it'll work.
Yeah.
And you got to give Professor Pedro a lot of credit for that too. He's the same way with his jujitsu. It's like he'll have what he teaches, but you can go with a problem, and he might not know right at that moment. And he does the same thing. He goes, "Do it to him. Let me feel it."
Yeah.
And then he'll get up and show you, well, here's 3 ways to get out of it. But I've been fortunate over the years to maintain all of the relationships that I've built in jujitsu, and I still go see those guys, and Coach Erik being one of them, and he is huge influence on how I put things together for myself and my curriculum, he has such a unique atmosphere and group at his academy. He's very much like he's heavily influenced by Guro Dan, and Guru's constantly looking for information and bringing it in, and Eric's the same way. And he'll bring new people in and introduce and show me what you do. And due to that, as you've gone to the school, his guys are unique. They have this blend of different forms of jujitsu, shudo, judo, you name it, and it's a very unique soup. And you'll go. I travel a lot, and I'll get to play and roll with different jujitsu guys. And after a while, you kind of know what to expect a little bit. But his guys, they could have a jujitsu feel. They could switch it to a catch feel. There's some shudo in there. It could be defensive. They can hit a switch and immediately go aggressive. It's unique.
Yeah, I experienced firsthand. Yeah, and I've been training for a while. Yeah,
that's influenced a lot of what I do. So I could sit here for hours and give all these guys credit over and over again. So
one of the things I noticed, or one of the things at CSW, the camp I went to, was I want to say the guys, but there were girls there as well, but just the caliber of individuals they had there were all very warm, very welcoming. And I'm not just talking about people that work there. The guys from all around the country were all very, we're just awesome people, I thought. Is that by design from the business side of the organization, or is that just purely like-minded people generally follow other like-minded people or connect with other like-minded people?
I'd say a little bit of both, because it is a group of professional martial artists, and you're coming to improve your skill and improve your knowledge, but you want to grow your business, and you got to go to work next week. And so if you're broken or busted up, can't really achieve that. So you have to approach it intelligently, and it doesn't mean lightly. It's just train smart, and when you've got the way I look at it is every now and then you're out there playing and you'll get one of the heaters, and right off the bat, you're playing and your arm starts to go after you right away. You got it. I don't need you to prove it to me. It's just training smart and being respectful. And they got an excellent group for that. Those guys, they're just amazing.
Now, do you have any future plans for CSW?
Oh, yes. We are currently putting together the Shudo curriculum, which is, I know
I like the fact that Coach Erik comes out with the shirts before he has the curriculum.
Yeah.
From a marketing perspective, like get the people excited about the merch, and then we'll hit them with the curriculum.
Yeah, he enjoys that, doing the t-shirts and stuff. It's almost a hobby for him, and different designs and that type of thing. And then from there, you'll see Bob Berge come out, and Bob is responsible for capturing all of this stuff so professionally on video.
He does a great job.
Bob is a hidden jewel.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, I am bragging. He's amazing at what he does with editing, and not only that, but how quickly he'll turn it over, because we communicate quite a bit. We're good friends. He'll record all day, and then he's like me, he wakes up early, but he'll be up all night. He's got this set up in his room and just have half of the stuff edited by the next day.
Yeah, he has quick turnaround. Me and him fell down a nerd wormhole just talking stuff, because my movie Lion Killer, we shot it on the Panasonic GH5 camera, same camera he's using to capture all the video of the event. So we were talking about cameras and stuff like that. So yeah. Shout out to Coach Bob. Another thing I want to talk to you about is I've heard a lot of stories about you being an entrepreneur.
We keep that a secret.
Hey, the secret's out, man. People are like, hey, have you talked to Coach Allen? This guy knows his business stuff.
Several businesses or revenue streams that I've built.
You seem like the kind of guy that needs a lot going on to keep himself occupied.
You'd think I was crazy. Yeah, I mean, I love growth and development, and I love to drive forward, and part of that is what makes you uncomfortable, and those opportunities pop up here and there. And in my mind, I recently just had one of those, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. I don't do that. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, damn it, I got to go do it now.
A business opportunity you're talking about?
A business opportunity, and an opportunity in the speaking industry.
Oh.
So like recently was in Chicago. The event's called Roger Up, and it was my first opportunity to do a public presentation as a speaker. I've taught classes before in front of 100 people, but you're getting ready to punch them or choke them. That's different. Just standing there and talking. That's that at the time, that's like, man, I've not done that before. And there's a stage and everything, so that took some adjustment. But yeah, like in many things I do, I seek out a mentor. I'm a big believer in mentors because it's living knowledge. There's many sources of knowledge, but you get someone that is current in the industry. They're going where you want to go. And you find that one personality that's making change. They're actually starting to do some stuff that you don't see. They're creators. And then you beg them, hey, mentor me. How much? Work with me. And so I was fortunate to get connected to some really good presenters, and they gave me some coaching, guided me in. So went up and had a pretty good showing for the first time. And they're already looking at dates for next year. I got another opportunity coming up in Las Vegas in December. So we're gradually putting our foot into the speaking industry.
And what are the other industries you're already currently involved in?
Well, we were going to mention this. When I was a teenager, one of the Kung Fu instructors owned an expeditions company. So we would go and train with him. And then every now and then he'd say, hey, will you want to stay for the weekend and help me with this group of guys that are coming in? They're going to climb. They're going to rappel. We're going to do mountaineering. We're going to do scuba diving. And so I got introduced to that at an early age. So due to that, I've pursued it my whole life. So I actually teach rappel masters twice a year out of Alabama. Do a lot of scuba diving certifications, full cave certified. So we set up trips. So I have a
Does that
business.
mean you can scuba into a underwater cave?
Yep, I have done that. Yep, and deep dive on wrecks. It's will make you a good diver. You mess up in there, you messed up.
They might make a movie about you.
Yeah, or you'll read about me in the paper.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the safest pastime, but it's definitely challenging. That's one of the reasons I got into it, is because, like we said earlier, the opportunity. Hey, would you like to do this? And I'm thinking, man, go into a cave full of water? No, I'm not interested in that. Then 5 minutes later, you got to go. Well, damn it, now I got to do it.
Now
And
let me ask you this, because I think this is important for people just in life. It's like, is it the fact that your original reaction is to retreat? You force yourself to advance and go forward. Is that the motivation?
well, we're martial artists and warriors. And for me, it might sound old school, but I have a code that I believe in as a warrior. And part of that code is going into the unknown. And it's something that warriors do, military, martial artists, fighters. When they're confronted with the unknown, they go forward. They don't pause, they don't walk back, or they do their best to. So, my first reaction to, like, hey, you're going to get up on stage and you're going to speak about personal development. I'm like, oh, that's not me at all. And then you're reminded that your internal landscape sometimes speaks before you do, and you're in charge. So when you realize that it spoke before there was thought, you have to go, yeah, all right, well, then we're going to do this, because you have to change your story. Otherwise, by default, it'll just decide what it is for you. And that's something that we, as martial artists and warriors, practice to do on a regular basis. Is we're in charge of that. We determine that. And so, when those opportunities pop up, of course, you don't jump on all of them, but the big ones where you might hear it here and feel it there, and
Basically, warrior spirit is what you're talking about, to me, the way I perceive it.
yeah.
Um, do you think that's why martial arts is so important, especially young children? Like, why parents should get their kids involved in martial arts so they could take that high ground instead of retreating it?
I believe so. And there's many opportunities in the world to improve yourself, get information, read a book, work with a coach. And then you'll gain information, and you kind of wait for life to throw something at you, and then I'm going to try to apply this information and come out better. And that is what's so amazing about the Martial Arts Academy. We're talking about the systems and the icing on the cake, but the mat creates an opportunity for human growth and development on a daily basis. You're challenged physically, you're challenged mentally, emotionally. Every aspect of the human machine, it will challenge. So it literally will just create an endless opportunity of practice for those self-improvement and self-betterment methodologies and techniques. You learn it in there, and then you want to eventually apply it in life. And it's one thing to learn knowledge and apply knowledge, but it's another thing to become it. And that takes repetition, just like anything. And that's one of the beautiful things about the martial arts, Matt, is that you can get all the repetition you want.
So I started my academy in February, so I'm only 7-8 months into it, right? Do you have any advice for a young upstart like myself?
Oh, wow.
You're 20 years in the game, baby.
It's going to be totally different than what you hear, because what the industry puts forward, and I found this to be true in any industry, is you're going to get 500 students. You're going to follow this plan and do these things and answer the phone this way, and then you'll be set. That's the big carrot.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I believe this, and I learned this from business mentors, and I have several of them that have nothing to do with this industry. You can have a business and then 4 different revenue streams. And you want to build multiple revenue streams. They don't all have to come from one source. The academy is one source. So you want to invest some mental energy into determining what are the other ones you're going to build. And the benefit of that too, we just saw that with COVID, is how many schools closed, because their sole revenue streams were designed around that one model. So that's usually one of the first things I suggest when I'm coaching individuals in this industry is let's build some additional ones. There's many ways to do it. Like we've just mentioned a few of them. There's a few more we didn't even talk about. But due to that, you've got more stability just as a entrepreneur in the industry. And if you follow the rules, you can just continually grow and develop. So that's what I would suggest is take the time to think about what other possibilities you have with your skill set to build additional revenue streams.
Is there anything you do specific, like a referral program or something that's helpful?
Yeah, probably one of the most powerful things we do and that I teach is word of mouth, and setting it up properly. You are literally dating your customer.
That's a good way to look at it. I never looked at it that way, right?
And it's like you date for a little while, you get a little used to it, you quit taking them out on dates, you stop picking up a flower on the way home, and things just start to taper off, and you have to continually date your customer. And through that, you're going to create an environment worth talking about. And then when their friends go, "What do you do?" We want their reaction to go, "Man, I'm dating this new guy. He's amazing. He takes me out once a week on a date. He brings flowers home. He did this. He did this. He's amazing. You should come meet him too." As opposed to, "Hey, if you bring your friend in, I'll give you a free month." And, they won't tell their friend until they get to the academy. And then the friend finds out that the only reason he brought him in is because he got something free. And, anytime you mix money with a relationship, it gets challenging. So date them, create the environment so they'll have something to talk about.
Do you have any advice for anyone out there that might be thinking about trying the martial arts? What would you say to that person who hasn't done martial arts, just thinking about getting into it? What would be your advice?
Definitely get involved. Most people are afraid to walk through the door because they don't want to get beat up or embarrassed. And a lot of what protects you from that is a good culture. And we just talked about Coach Erik. He builds a good culture in his academy, his association. Like we said, those guys are gold. And that is a direct result of good leadership. So if an academy has a good leadership, you will hear about it. People will know. And so if you can find that network opportunity to meet that person that is in the industry, talk to them, they can generally guide you in and get you into a place that's going to be really good.
What are some things people should avoid in looking for a academy to train at?
Injuries. If you walk in and there's eye patches and missing fingers and toes are gone and knee wraps, you kind of go, "Oh, I don't know." And it's going hard is a good thing. I'm not saying that you don't want an academy that does that, but there's such a thing as intelligently training with intensity. And that takes a good, intelligent instructor who knows how to design proper methodology for training with high levels of intensity. And otherwise, you're going to hear them say, "Well, just go hard. It'll just make you better." And they should be able to tell you specifically how to go hard and exactly the mindset that you're in, the goals that you're wanting to achieve during that elevated interaction. And if they can't do that, then that's, to me, I'm not interested in that. You can go anywhere and knuckle drag, until you hit your mid 30s or 40s, and then you start paying attention to that. You can get damage that takes you out of the game. And we don't want that. It's like you think of Guro Dan. Look, he's amazing. He still does private lessons multiple times a week and trains, and it's just amazing, you know. And a lot of it is because of how smart he approaches training. That's what I want to be when I'm in my 60s, my 70s.
Do you have any life lesson, any wisdom, anything you want to pass on, anything you want to say to the people out there that might help them reach their goals and live a happy life?
Don't be afraid to plan big. I see that a lot. You know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to achieve that thing. That's probably what I can do. And then you'll spend time and energy and effort to get there. Then you'll look around and go, man, I should have shot something higher. Don't be afraid to shoot high. Land short, but shoot high. Go for it. That way you will be surprised what you can achieve. I see it on the mat. I see it in life. I've made that mistake multiple times, which is why you asked for that advice. I give it. I would have never guessed I'd been doing what I'm doing right now.
I definitely agree. You know, dream big, go for it. And, you know, surround yourself with quality people. And I think there's a lot of quality people at CSW. So do you want to give anyone a last shout out or anything, or the organization, or where they could get information on CSW maybe?
You can look up the website, ericpaulson.com. And I'm listed on there as the association director. You'll have my contact information. You can find me directly at my site at Sifu Alan Baker, AlanBaker.com.
Well, I appreciate your time, Coach Allen, and hopefully I'll run into you at one of the coaches' camps.
Looking forward to it.
And once again, I'd like to thank Coach Allen for being generous with his time and coming on the show today. You can reach him on his website at sifualanbaker.com. And you can connect with me on Twitter at Derrick Fury to stay up to date with everything that's happening with my new graphic novel, The Gentleman's Guild. Link to the mailing list is in the description. Make sure you sign up for that today. And don't forget to watch Lion Killer, my debut feature film. That's right, I made a movie. It's called Lion Killer. It stars Regina Ting-Chen, who's currently on season 4 of Stranger Things. You can watch it at Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, Freevee, the Roku channel, or you can pop on over to the YouTube channel called V Movies. And thanks for watching this episode of FURYCAST. And once again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on this video. I'll be back next week. Till then, peace.